Hello. So in this video, we're going to evaluate the effectiveness of information provision. So basically what we're looking at is information provision, i.e. providing information, is that going to solve market failures? Okay. So first point we need to consider when we evaluate the effectiveness of information provision is we need to consider how informative is the information. And what we mean by that is we're considering the quality of the information that is provided. So if the government was to provide some information, obviously we would want the information to be as informative as possible in order to have the greatest effect. So when we're considering it, we're considering the quality of information. So let's consider if the information was high quality. So obviously, high quality information refers to information that is highly informative. It gives specific details which is going to really inform the consumer. So let's consider it for both a merit and a demerit good and what the impact of high quality information would have. So if we consider first of all a merit good, obviously with regards to a merit good, we want the information to encourage an increase in quantity demanded. Okay. And obviously if the information is high quality, we would expect a greater increase in quantity demanded than if the information was poor quality. And that's what we're just going to make a note of now. Merit good, bigger increase in QD than if information was poor quality. So let's just elaborate on this. So for example, vaccines are an example of a merit good. Okay, so if the government said in a press conference or in a public announcement, if they said vaccines are good for you, this vaccine in particular, it's good for you, not many people are particularly going to go, oh, I think I'll have that vaccine because it's good for me. Okay, so that's an example of poor quality information provision. The quality of the information provided is very weak. They've just been told that the vaccine is good for them. Okay, so consumers can't really see the benefits of it. Okay, whereas if the government announced that if you have this vaccine, the chance that you will contract a specific virus is only 5%, and the survival rate, if you did contract the virus, would be 99%. So there's only a 1% chance that you potentially could die. Then I think people would be more likely to consume the vaccine, because what the government has quite clearly done is they've said, hang on a minute, if you have this vaccine, you've got a 99% chance of survival, and you're very unlikely to actually contract the virus, because the vaccine will help you fight it off and prevent you suffering from the symptoms of the virus. So just by saying a vaccine is good isn't going to encourage people to do it. That's poor quality information. Whereas if there's specific data that says this vaccine is particularly good because it's going to improve improve your life expectancy by a certain number of years, and the likelihood of mortality, the likelihood of death, is significantly reduced by having this vaccine, people are more likely to consume it. That's higher quality information. The information that's been provided is very informative with regards to this are the specific benefits that you will get, rather than just being very vague there. So High quality information, if it was a merit good, the high quality information would lead to a bigger increase in quantity demanded if the information was poor quality. Now let's consider a demerit good. And obviously we would expect a bigger decrease in QD than if information was poor quality. So again, we're assuming that high quality information has been received with regards to a demerit good. And if high quality information is received about a demerit good, we would expect a bigger decrease in quantity demanded than if the information was poor quality. So for example, the government could make an announcement that said fast food is bad for you. Okay, I don't suspect that many people would take that advice, that information, and go, oh, I'm not going to consume fast food anymore. The quality of the information was particularly poor. There wasn't much guidance and specifics with regards to the impact of fast food and why it was bad for you. So poor quality information, i.e. an example would be fast food is bad for you. Whereas if the government said eating fast food on a regular basis doubled the chance of heart disease, and therefore consuming fast food should be reduced to prevent you contracting heart disease, I think more people would listen to that information because there's greater depth to the information. The idea that if you eat fast food too much, it's going to increase your chance of heart disease, people would be more likely to listen to that than if the government said fast food is bad for you. So really the quality of the information is going to determine the impact on demand for a particular product. So if it's high quality, we're going to see a greater impact upon demand than if the quality of information was poor. So obviously here we've just looked at high quality. Obviously you could have swapped this around with regards to poor quality, and obviously poor quality information with regards to a merit good. If it was poor quality information, there'd be only a small increase in quantity demanded, whereas if it was poor quality with regards to a demerit good, you'd only see a small decrease in quantity demanded. So let's have a look at a second evaluative point that we could talk about, and that could be the size of the information failure. So obviously the bigger the information failure, the greater amount of information is needed in order to correct it and therefore get closer to the social optimum. So let me just repeat that point. So the greater the information failure, so the less that people know, then the more information will be needed in order to correct the information failure, and therefore it may be harder to get closer to the social optimum because it may be more difficult to convince people of why you should consume more of a particular good with regards to a merit good, or why people should consume less of a particular good, obviously referring to a demerit good. So the larger the information failure, more information needed to get to the social optimum. So we may argue that if there's a large information failure, it may be more difficult to get to the social optimum because more information is needed. And obviously, on the other hand, if the size of the information failure was particularly small, obviously less information would be needed to get to the social optimum. So therefore, it could be easier, some may argue. and therefore if the information failure was large, more information failure would be needed to get to the social optimum, and therefore it would take longer to achieve social optimum. Obviously, as I mentioned moments ago, the size, if the information failure was only particularly small, less information would be needed, and therefore it may be quicker to achieve the social optimum. So that would be the other argument, that if the information failure was particularly small, then less information would be needed, and therefore less time would be needed to get to the social optimum. There is another argument that could come along here. Some may argue that actually, with a larger information failure, you'll obviously see a greater response by providing information. So that may be an alternative argument. If the idea of the information failure is particularly large, you may actually see a particularly sudden increase in consumption of a particular good, i.e. we're referring to a merit good if we want people to consume more of it. Similarly, with a demerit good, you'd expect to see a sudden large decrease potentially. So that could be an argument there. But we've got about the idea, if the information failure is particularly large, more information would be needed to get to the social optimum, and therefore it may take longer. Third point to consider with regards to information provision is whether consumers take the advice. So information could be provided, as we are all aware that fast food is bad for you, smoking is bad for you, drinking alcohol is bad for you. We are informed on a regular basis by adverts by the government, for example, packaging, being made aware of calories, the amount of saturated fat, the amount of units of alcohol in certain things. We are continuously made aware of why those items I listed are bad for us. But does that stop us from consuming them? No, it doesn't, does it? Okay, so people will still drink alcohol. People will still smoke cigarettes. Unfortunately, those people who smoke cigarettes have a higher probability of contracting lung cancer. People are aware of that, but they continue to smoke cigarettes, and therefore that isn't going to correct the market failure, because consumers may not necessarily take on board the advice or the information. Ignore information, and if consumers ignore the information, there would be no change in quantity demanded. So we may be told exercise is good for us, but we may just go, well, exercise is just going to be too much effort. I can't be bothered going for a run. I'm just going to sit on the couch and watch TV. And therefore, you've been told that exercise is good for you, but you can't go out going, I just can't be bothered. I'm ignoring the information, and therefore there is no change. And therefore, information provision would be wasted. Okay, so really important point, whether consumers take the advice. Point number 4, how many people see the information? So similar to kind of point 1 about the quality of the information, this looks at the quantity of information and the quantity of people who actually see the information. So obviously it's great that the government, for example, may provide a particular advert, but how many people watch the advert? So the government in the past have done some particularly powerful drink drive adverts. You have the example of the man who's driven and to the pub, and then he goes to the bar and he's asked what would he like, and then it runs through a scenario where he's caught drink driving and the implications that that would have, and then it goes back to asking him, so what would you like? And I thought that was really quite a powerful advert, making you really think. But how many people have seen that advert? If you haven't seen it, then you may not necessarily consider the negative consequences of drink driving. Obviously, it's illegal, but there are also many other things that come with it. The potential death that you may cause by drink driving, and all the other implications, as I mentioned, that could come with it. But yeah, it's really important how many people actually see that information, because obviously the more people that see it, hopefully, therefore, more people will change their actions. Whereas the less people that see it, the less impact that would have. So more people see info, larger increase in QD, and that refers to merit goods. Larger people see, more people see a larger decrease in the quantity demanded of demerit goods. So how many people see the information is going to determine the impact on quantity demanded. So just to run through these 4 key points with regards to evaluating information provision, we're thinking about how informative is the information, so the quality of it. We're thinking about the size of the information failure, and therefore how much information provision is going to be required to correct that. We're thinking about whether consumers actually take on board advice given. They could quite easily ignore that advice. And then finally, we considered how many people see the information. So the quantity of people that see the information, because obviously the more people that see it, the greater the outcome should hopefully be and closer to the social optimum.